Well, hey everybody, it's Reverend Tim Kutzmark here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Fresno, California, outside on our beautiful Alluvial Avenue campus, but I'm so glad you're joining us on one variation of our virtual campus. This weekend is one of those strange combinations of multiple religious holidays happening at the same time. We have Ramadan occurring, we have Passover, we have Easter, and that all three of those don't happen usually simultaneously, usually two of them. So I've been thinking about holidays, I've been thinking about religious springtime festivals, and I've been thinking about that incredible flow of religious impulse and yearning that emerges in different cultures, in different religious traditions, but I believe from a universal human point or need, and that is in this time of year to celebrate the rebirth of life, the resurrection of life. And I love how Passover and then Easter is connected to a greater flow of that impulse. Did you know, and this is, I'm quoting from a wonderful article by Joan Goodwin, a Unitarian Universalist, who actually was a member of Arlington Street Church in Boston, was an early mentor of mine when I became a Unitarian Universalist, and then when I decided to go into Unitarian Universalist ministry. Joan Goodwin. She writes that the ancient Egyptians thought of their rich valley as a woman, the goddess Isis. So the valley itself was a goddess Isis, and that the great Nile River was the god Osiris, flooding the land each year with life-giving water. And the story is that Osiris's jealous brother, Set, killed Osiris and cut up his body and scattered his remains along the riverbank. Sounds like an episode of Law and Order SVU. Isis comes along and lovingly puts Osiris back together, the pieces of his bodies back together, and he is resurrected and becomes the ruler over all the dead souls in the Elysian fields. But again, this springtime ritual of coming to life. The Babylonians told the story of Tammuz, the god of the harvest, who died young, and then Ishtar, the goddess of love, who rescues him from the underworld and brings him back to life. The Phoenicians had a similar story about Adonis dying young, and then Aphrodite, the goddess of love, resurrecting him, bringing him back to life. So these are all the kind of springtime religious festivals that were bubbling up in the consciousness of the time. And you know that when the Hebrews were enslaved in Egypt, they would have heard the story of Osiris and of Seth, the evil brother, and the goddess Isis. They would have heard the Babylonian stories. They would have heard the Phoenician stories and other stories. And so elements of all of this coming back to life in the spring came alive in that extraordinary Jewish springtime story about Passover, where the enslaved Hebrews are called by Moses and his sister Miriam and Moses' brother Aaron to walk themselves to freedom, and to be spared one of the terrible and the last terrible plague, when the God of the Hebrews was going to slay all of the firstborn in Egypt. And let's not get started talking about that imagery. And there's a wonderful article today, opinion piece in the New York Times, Friday's opinion piece in the New York Times about the Passover story that's really worth a read. But in any event, they mark a sign of God's love, which was blood of slaughtered lambs, and they put it on their doorway, and then the angel of death passes over those households, sparing the Hebrews and bringing grief and lamentation to the Egyptian homes, and then they're free. Now, so for generations, this Passover ritual has been enacted and told, and symbols such as the egg and new leaves and the lamb were used over and over again. And the egg was a symbol that was also in the Egyptian traditions, and the Babylonian traditions, and the Phoenician traditions, and the Canaan traditions. And so all of this emerges in the new springtime religious festival that comes to the Christian faith, and that is the story of that great freedom prophet, Jesus of Nazareth, who is slaughtered, who is killed. Some of his followers, later followers, believed that he was a sacrificial lamb bringing life, just as the sacrificial lamb in Passover kept life in the Hebrew homes. And so that impulse to have one who is destroyed and then brought back to life again, resurrected, is told anew in the Christian story. And I love how the vestiges of the goddess Isis, bringing back Osiris, of Ishtar, the Babylonian Ishtar, bringing back the god Tammuz, Aphrodite bringing back to life Adonis. There's vestiges of that in the resurrection story as captured in the Gospels, because the women go to the tomb, and they're the ones who discover in that story that the tomb is empty, and Jesus has resurrected and is alive again. So we have that goddess connection, still echoes of it in the Christian tradition. Needless to say, I just get giddy about all of this, because knowing the origins of these stories doesn't take away from the power of, say, the Christian story. I think it adds depth to it, because it shows that it is emerging out of this universal human yearning that has stretched back generation after generation after generation, a yearning to be part of that cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth that we see enacted each spring. Happy Passover, happy spring, happy Easter, and a sacred Ramadan to you. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.